chairman of this thing.
Oh, you know,
Alrighty. Looks like it's 10 o'clock, I'm hearing. We will, excuse me, like I said, 11. We'll stand and say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. I guess the first on the agenda is agenda approval. Is there any changes to the agenda? Doesn't look like it.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input. There is no public input. We will move on to the consent agenda. Same thing, any changes or additions? If none,
No changes.
ask for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, David.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Old business, Farden Industrial Park, RFP.
So we had requested RFPs on helping with the development of the industrial park. And we talked to 4 different agencies. 3 said thanks, but this isn't a good time for us. Widseth submitted a proposal. The original proposal was for $40,000. This proposal breaks that out and does the project scoping, meeting with stakeholders, and public meetings. And then pushes the rest off to a later event if we get to the point of having a concept we want to develop. And their price for this is $19,000 to do that piece. So that would be the conversation we had a few months ago. It would meet with the stakeholders, including Farden Township, this group, ourselves as kind of the background with what's going on with utility companies and how we got to making this, bringing this to this far, and then prepare that information and hold the public meeting, and then report back to the stakeholders. I think by the end of this, we'd probably have a pretty good concept. We'd define some terms, like when we talk about light industrial or heavy industrial, when we could address many of the concerns the public brought up about water quality and smokestacks. Since we don't have water and sewer, both of those things are not things that would be eligible for that. And I think this is kind of what we promised that we would do with the public is that we would have that conversation with them. I was hoping it was gonna be a little less than this, but this is probably $6,000 or $7,000 more than I thought this part would be, but I still think it's probably reasonable and a good next step.
So, Mr. Chair, or whoever wants to answer, if we approve this, when are we looking approximate date for week 1? So when would this start?
I would assume they're willing and ready to start with the staff that they have on hand anytime we said go. So if we're looking at like a 3-month process and we started August 1st, we'd be done by the end of October.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Well, I do think it's important that our board, along with the public, is as educated as possible with all the concerns and the answers.
Definitely.
Well, part of the things that they'll be looking at is the road access, because that was one of the public concerns.
Yep, site development options, road access options, all of that, they'll have conversations about.
Alrighty.
And that's specifically under the item 3, items to address.
Oh, there it is, okay.
It goes into the industrial park and road access there.
board's wishes or motion?
Well, so recouping the 19,000 would come if we moved forward at the sale of the properties.
From the sale and then later from the tax capacity development, but primarily from the sale. I believe that the land that we have there is worth more than we paid for it when it's purchased for development options.
Yep.
So yes, I believe it eventually would recoup that.
I'll move forward with this.
Thank you, Shar. And I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. New business. Down payment assistant recap.
Last month, you approved a few changes to the policies surrounding the entry cost assistance, and really didn't have a lot of background about the program itself, so I thought it would be worthwhile to just provide a few highlights about the program and how it's been working. It actually started as part of, back in 2009, the HRA had a agreement with the Nevis High School to build high school houses. So the high school would build the houses on site in an area called Evergreen Court, which is outside of the central part of Nevis, but in the city limits. And it was some soft second mortgages that were used to help incentivize the purchase of those homes. And two of those were done in 2009 and 2010, and then the program did more from that point to a more broad-based down payment assistance. So it was really meant to only cover the down payment cost necessary for entry into a home. And over the course of the next 10, 12 years, 25 loans were given. About 3 average a year is all that's been really happening at that point. And they were based on need to a maximum amount of $7,500. So some folks, if it would push their front end ratio so low that it was sort of unfair, then their amount that they would receive would be reduced so that the payment, the front end ratio would not drop below 25%. And of the 25 loans, 11 are no longer active. 9 of those were paid in full, 2 were charged off. There's 14 that are currently active. 5 are currently in repayment status, and then 9 are scheduled to start. The program works so that the payments don't kick in. They're 10-year notes, but there's no payments in the first 5 years. And the reason for that is then it doesn't get calculated into the ratios for a mortgage payment. So any debt that is not due within 5 years of the start of a mortgage is not calculated into the front or back end ratios when it comes to making a mortgage payment. So these kick in at the 61st month so that getting the resource does not penalize them in the amount of payment, and then also that after a 5-year period of time, they've sort of gotten used to the mortgage and hopefully have earned a little bit more resources and then able to make that payment. At the full amount, it's $7,500. We have a 4% interest rate, and the first 5 years are interest free, so the interest doesn't start kicking in until that 61st month. So payments are, if they got the entire amount, it's $138.12. So that's what that payment is over the remaining 5 years of the loan. So when I say that there are 9 that are scheduled to start, they've gotten their loans, but their 5 years hasn't hit yet, and so they haven't quite scheduled the time that they start. The distribution of the loans, we've had 9 that have been in the LaPorte address. I don't know exactly sort of where, if it's an address of LaPorte, it's, you know, one in Solway, clearly on the Hubbard County side of Solway. One in Bemidji, again, in the Hubbard County side. There's been 13 in Park Rapids, but based on the addresses of what I know in town, many of those are outside of the city limits. But in the time that I had, I couldn't quite map them all to figure out how many were actually outside of the city limits. We had one in Lake George and one in Cass Lake. So the program has been pretty dispersed around the county. The popularity, I think, in the northern part is due to a couple of the lenders in the Bemidji area that know about the program and utilize it quite a bit. So we've been able to reach that part of the county because of the relationship with some of the banks in Bemidji. So I think that that's been helpful. Overall, there has been a total of $157,744 that have been lent out. There's currently an outstanding amount of $74,900. And of that, we have had a few charge-offs of $13,176. So in the scheme of the program, it's been pretty good as far as not having a lot of defaults overall in the program. So it's I think been an effective program. This has all been utilized using your own the resources that the HRA has gotten from the levy. So we have exclusively used the levy to fund this program originally and then have recycled it. You've never established sort of a maximum portfolio amount. Because of the number of requests that we get, generally, if you think about that 157,000 total portfolio or amount, we get enough payments back that we can fund 1 or 2 loans a year sort of under that recycled program. We've never really had to think about, oh, we should set a limit or close the program. We've just not had a run on it. And so it's been one of those things that's been very valuable. It's gotten people into the ability to purchase a home. But it has never been one that's an overwhelmingly utilized program. Part of that is that up to this point, we haven't really marketed it heavily. So that's part of the sort of the nuance is if you're really interested in marketing it much more heavily, then we should have some conversations about how much do you want to make available and, you know, what's our caps and do we want to have a portfolio amount that we provide a certain amount every year or those kinds of things. And so that's kind of one of the questions that you may want to ponder or you might want to talk about right now is, you know, with marketing becomes utilization and how do you want to structure that? I will also tell you that as part of your overall loans that you have, you do have one contract for deed that you funded several years ago. It was intended to be part of the MERL program, which is that state-funded program, but it didn't meet the qualifications, so the HRA did fund it out of your own resources, and that person is paying back. We did have 2 previous to that are both repaid, so in total you've done 3 contract for deed payments. In total you've done 16 rehabilitation loan programs. That was primarily during the time where you were an administrator for the Minnesota Housing rehabilitation loan program, and some households would need a little bit extra, and so you had a pool that you would bring into that. There are no, there's one current outstanding loan that's relatively close to being paid off, but we have not done any new rehab loans for several years. And then that MERL program that we talked about, originally there were 16 homes in the portfolio. You were provided funding from the state of Minnesota to purchase those homes at a 0% interest contract for deed. And we are now down to 6 homes in that portfolio. So that's why that balance of that MERL account seems relatively high, is that those repayments have come back, and we are administratively required to hold on to those funds until all of those loans are paid back, and then we're supposed to send that money back to the state. I've been, on occasion, trying to hit with the right legislators to either de-state that money so that it becomes the property of the local administrators, because we have $308,000 that we could really do something with, that's just sitting there getting 0% interest for relatively little interest. And I think that we could better utilize that, or as a second option, they have discontinued the ability to purchase any new homes. So if they won't give us the money, giving us the ability to purchase homes, because it is a great program for some very low-income households. What happens is we purchase a home, rehabilitate it, sell it on a contract for deed, and the payments are structured so that they're affordable, and folks then have a way of getting into home ownership that really would not have any other way to do so. So those are some of the conversations, but the entry cost assistance was really the focus of the conversation today. Do you have questions about? Sure.
Yeah, I have one. It seems like any payments and also interest received ought to be included in some kind of cash flow statement to us each month, along with maybe an asset statement. Because, actually we didn't know about this program at all, or until, what was last month or something like that, so maybe this is just for our fiduciary responsibility of monitoring things, have that in with the cash flow and an asset statement.
The payments do show up in the general checking account, so the money that goes into the general checking account is reflective of the payments. There's only, well, 5 are in repayment status right now, so there's not very many, but yes, we can do that. And then we will get a balance sheet together. We're getting very close and getting all of the reconciliation done. When we've been going through, we found that there's down home is where the payments are tracked right now, which is one software, and then you've got your accounting software. And what we found is that payments were missing from one or the other or both, and Alicia has now gotten through 2020, most of 2023, and about half of 2024. So we're getting very close, but yes, we will do that.
Are they usually paid off before that 60 months and interest starts kicking in, or
No, most of them don't. It sits quietly until they get reminded that they need to make a payment, and so when it gets to about 4.5 years in, we need to send a letter to them and then ask them to, typically we ask that they fill out an ACH or an automatic payment so that we aren't looking for checks, and then we process those, so.
So if they sold their home, even before they start making payments, that $7,500 has to be paid back, right?
Yes, it does. What we do when we close a loan is we have a mortgage that we put as a second mortgage, and then we also do a notice of foreclosure. that's recorded. So what that does is if the property would happen to go into foreclosure by the first lender, then we would be notified of that fact. But if it would sell, if they sell the property prior to that, there's a lien that has to be cleared. So, and that has happened. We had one person that died, and so then as part of their estate, we had to clear that out. And so there's been a few cases, and overall, we've been generally pretty successful in receiving those funds back.
So it sounds like the bankers know about this program, and they obviously then would know the people that are really in need.
Yeah, and it, again, we have a few banks. Security Bank is a big one in Bemidji that has utilized the program a lot. Citizens in Northwoods here have been the two that have seemed to utilize it the most. So those three lenders are really the three that have seemed to utilize it the most. Some of that is, also staffing changes, and we haven't done a lot to advertise that we have this program available. But it is being used, and it is oftentimes the piece that helps the household get into a home, that, but for this resource, they wouldn't be able to do that.
And is this first-time home buyers or just low-income people?
It's actually not low income, it's moderate, so it's up to 80%, which is considered moderate income. And there's a preference to first-time home buyers. The policies that you approved last month, say that it's that 80% income. First-time home buyers, generally that first home. From the state of Minnesota perspective, if you are looking for a first-time home buyer loan, you cannot have owned a home in 3 years. So if you don't have property in your name for 3 years, then you qualify again as being a first-time home buyer, which semantics, but that's what it is. And so we've tried to stay closely aligned with that program, because that tends to be the one that most of the borrowers are using. And that one requires a 5% down, and sometimes it's just that little bit extra that they need in order to get that resource to be able to purchase.
One of my questions I had, but you kind of answered them, was obviously there wasn't a fund balance, and then what capacity would we have left to do? Well, it's kind of just been floating, approving one at a time as they come in.
Yes.
So unless we had a pool of money that we wanted to dedicate to a fund specific for this purpose, we just keep doing what we're doing too. But if you wanted to expand it, it probably would get used more.
And that is true. And I think one of the things that we should think about, and I would suggest, is now that we've sort of got our feet underneath us, to do a little bit of strategic planning about what the organization really wants to think about over the next 5 years, and create a plan before we one-off, or are we gonna do this or that or the other thing, rather than making a decision independent about what we do with the down payment assistance or any of these other things. Think about sort of broadly what is the goal and the responsibility for the organization over the next 5 years, and then we can fill our programs to meet those goals. And that is something that you as a new board haven't done, and with the changes adding the EDA, it's probably a good time to start thinking about having some of those conversations about, organizationally, what do we want to do? And then have that conversation about what programs do we want to set up and fill, and then market accordingly, rather than make a decision now about down payment assistance and then find out that that probably wasn't the best decision just based on what the organization wants to do in total.
I'm thinking ahead to Heartland Heights, you know, if we're gonna have houses, affordable housings for sale, how many more people could we get into some of those houses if we expanded the use of the down payment assistance on?
And for me, like you say, what programs do we fund? Because we don't have unlimited resources. So it's kind of like we have to pick our priorities, and
Mhm.
I like the results we're having here. And obviously, there's probably more need than we're covering. But at some point, yeah, we should have that conversation as to what do we want to make available and what do we want to fund? Or how much do we want to fund, and what's the chicken or the egg, what comes first, you know?
Well, and you get it back, so there's
Yeah.
the benefit. If you generally get it back, you just have to fund it for 5 years before you start getting anything back.
Right.
And so you could set a pool of money and create a fund for down payment assistant, and then you know what you've got to work with all the time, and as they start to pay off, you got more capacity again.
Right. And, you know, we talked a lot about, so there's two programs that really do help the organization live broadly around the county. One of those has been the down payment assistance program, and the other one historically has been the rehabilitation program. When you operated that, you used other people's money to operate it, but you were still able to have that countywide reach. The challenge with that program is that the households who typically need that resource don't have the ability to pay it back. And so that's really a sinking pool. And again, it's conversations about the down payment assistance is one we get back, rehab generally not so much. But is that in the mission of the organization, and should we be doing that, and to what degree? Again, that goes back to those conversations about who do we want to be when we grow up. Now that we've added this EDA on, how does that impact the overall activity and scope of what the organization is doing? And we just never have had that conversation yet. And I think it behooves us now that things are sort of settling down, and we're getting into a rhythm, to start thinking about having some of those conversations. And then create the programs underneath that to support whatever it is that the intentions are, so.
So with the rehab, you say we usually don't get that money back. And we're probably usually looking at like around 25,000.
Yeah, so the two programs that are funded externally, one is Minnesota Housing's owner-occupied rehab program. They've really scaled back who can administer that program. As you may recall, we were gonna go after that, and what they had said is that unless you have a staff person, don't even bother. We have hired a person that now has the credentials to do the program, but they're working right now on the small cities program, which is a lot of work, and so we're kind of working through that, and then we'll go back and try and administer that program. That one has a $25,000 limit. You can't buy a lot with $25,000 with rehabilitation anymore. And that one has a very low income requirement. It's a deferred loan, but the income is somewhat challenging to get people qualified for. And so the way that your program used to work is that people would come in with that, and you would either bring in additional resources, so that if the rehab was actually 35,000, you'd come in with 10, and that would, you'd try and make repayable, but those payments were often over like a 30-year period of time in order to make them affordable for the households that we were trying to hit. The other utilization that happened is that there were some applications, and you can still get those if we do it right, Minnesota Housing has a program where you can buy down the interest rate on rehabilitation loan programs called the Community Fix-Up Fund. So most banks, none in Park Rapids, do the Community Fix-Up Fund, and that has a much higher income limit, but they charge market rate interest. And we could apply to do interest buy down, where that means that we could use some grant resources to buy the interest rate of those loans down, so that the home buyers, instead of paying 8%, would pay like 2%. So that's some other options that we can look at. Again, how do we wanna bring out that program, and do we wanna use all external resources and help facilitate that? Do we wanna use some of our own resources? So that's really, again, conversations that we'll wanna have.
And how do we figure out the need and what would be the most ideal programs to invest in?
Part of that, we can look at the housing study. Ours was, the housing study that we did in 23, did provide some information about the housing stock and the ages. So we'd be able to take a look at that. Some of it would be through the county tax records, just to see some of the ages of the property. And then there would be some demographic programs where we would get a sense of, you know, the income status of a lot of the folks in the community that we could kinda, and then some is just anecdotally, and you just drive around and look, and you can kinda see what the potential need is. So there's a few ways that we could get some information to develop a program.
Thank you.
So looking ahead, you know, at what we're gonna be discussing in a little bit, is there any down payment assistant money available for the lots that we're looking to develop shortly?
Yes and no, it depends on, you know, the 1Z, 2Z, or 7Z. We could potentially do that. And, we have, based on that 157 with our current outstanding of 74, you know, there would be some room that we could give some, or we could establish something for
Okay.
just those homes.
Okay.
And I guess I'm guessing it could be at two stages, if the home builder or if the person actually building the home would be living in it, assisting them now, or if somebody else built the home, somebody buying it, we might be able to assist.
And I can look at, again, we keep getting the information updated, and so we can look and see what kinds of resources, if we want to set some aside specifically for that group, and if they use them, great, and if they don't, that's fine, and then we can set those back in too, so.
Yeah, I wonder if you could find some state resources, since they know we're building a development, and there may be more of a need for it.
Well, Minnesota Housing, their first-time home buyer does have down payment assistance dollars tied to them. So if people are moderate income households, they can tap into some down payment assistance programs. The challenge is that the banks in Hubbard County don't provide those loans. But given the location of where those lots are, more than likely they'd be dealing with the Bemidji Bank anyway. And so Bemidji banks are aware and use those programs. So there are some down payment assistance resources that are available that are not local. And, you know, if we find that we have some potential requests, we can always address it at that point too. Any other comments or questions on?
I was just thinking about those Merle dollars.
Oh,
You
I know.
I just, it's a shame that they can't be captured to do something
'cause
more
they just
useful than
sit
just sit there.
I know.
And how much did the state contribute to that to begin with, even if it was a deal that, hey, you know what, when it's satisfied, you get your portion back, we keep the access that's available to us. But yeah, it's a shame that it can't be utilized for something, because that would be a huge benefit.
And how many years do we have left till it's
Yeah,
totally paid? It
that was
just
gonna be
sits
my next
there
question.
until it's all paid.
Well, we just closed a loan for a new household, in 23,
So it's gonna be a while.
so another 30 years, we have the money before we pay it back. Now, isn't that a waste?
Yeah.
And so, really,
So Steve, you'll be the only one left on the board.
I'll be long gone. You know, and it's really gonna take legislative action. It's gonna take legislators to get it on their radar that there's 15 administrators around the state who have these resources. So it's limited in the pool, but it's just money that's sitting there.
Yeah.
And we're small potatoes.
Oh.
There's some of them
Yeah.
that have
Millions.
like $1 million that is just sitting there. So, it would be wonderful if we would be able to utilize that as, local resources, and we would do virtually the same kind of program.
Is this something we talk to our legislators about, or, okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Could you draft a little write-up for us, so that the next time we go see a legislator or whatever, we can have that information directly available? Talk
Absolutely.
specifically about it to try to push it along.
It seems like a no-brainer when there's a
Oh,
housing
yeah.
shortage, you
Yeah.
know, that
Right.
you would just let this money be recycled again.
Yep.
And plus
Let
the
it go to
money
a good purpose.
is being cut back, and so this would be a way to fund some things.
On some things.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, well, I want it all back, and you're not getting anything.
Yeah, yeah, but yes, I will do that, I'll get a little cheat sheet bullet points of what the
Yeah,
program is.
thank you.
Yeah, cause I know there's some federal programs out there where after, like with the HRDC, they loan the money out, and then when the money comes back in, though, now we get to loan it back out again. It doesn't have to go back to the feds. So it'd be great if we could do this with the mural money. Could help a lot.
Yes.
Alrighty, if we're done with that, we can move on to the Farden Housing Development Lot Sale Approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These two kind of go hand in hand. As you're aware, the County Line Estates preliminary plat was approved by the Planning Commission and by the Hubbard County Board of Commissioners. The application for the final plat is underway, and I would assume that that would be on the August 16th, or the Planning Commission meeting in August. So what we're asking for is for you to approve or set a couple of the terms of offering of these parcels for sale, and then approve administratively us to move forward with letting these offerings. The two things we need to do is, we can't sell them until the final plat has been recorded, right? So there's that process, I'm assuming will complete in August. And we need to have a public hearing relative to the sale of these parcels. I'm suggesting that if you approve the first recommendation here, that approve the request for offers in the purchase sale agreement, the templates that we have, establish the minimum bid price for the lots, and authorize the HRA EDA director to offer the lots contingent on the approval and recording, then we can, after the planning commission meets, we can offer these for sale, and then we can hold the public hearing in September so that we can set the date for closing on them, so we can get them to their intended purpose, which is to be built out as single-family homes. So the elements that we need to fill in, and we can't fill this lot information or address until the final plat is done, so that's not in there. The conditions of purchase are that they'll execute a purchase agreement, that they will begin construction within 1 year and have completed construction within 2 years, that it will be at least 960 square feet, Our intention is that this is gonna be served by a septic system and a water well and have a foundation, that these are built homes. And that, the minimum price is really the element that we need you to establish for those lots. And the goal is to have them be reasonable, so that they will go, but we have to advertise a minimum price that people would bid. And then the expectation is that we would offer those for about a 2-week period, that publicly, and notice that, and that anything that didn't sell in that 2-week period, we would hold over and sell over the counter for anything over the minimum price. Mary, we haven't talked specifically about this, but do we have an idea of what we want to recommend for a minimum price?
I do. So based on where we're at with costs right now, the land, we were able to acquire for only the timber value. So the entire 80 acres, the timber value was $11,770. And then we have another, almost $16,000 into the costs associated with the platting of the first 7 lots. So, given that, I was thinking that a minimum price would, anywhere between $7,500 and $10,000 a lot would cover our costs, and then also, provide some additional resources should we want to start development on the second 40, because that's where we're going to incur more costs when it comes to a road, unless we offer it up as a potential, full sale as well. So we could say, this is available for development at a set price, and then we wouldn't have to go through the platting process or the building of the road, and we could just recoup the costs of that with, again, some of the additional requirements.
So are you thinking every lot's gonna be the same price, or some gonna have a minimum price?
That's what would be
Higher?
my question.
I think it would be appropriate that all 7 of those lots could have the same price. They're roughly the same, in size. There's a couple that are a little bit shallower. The wetland comes up quite a bit, but it still does not significantly impact the buildability of the lot. So, value-wise, I don't think that there's a lot of differentiation between those 7 lots. Yeah.
That's what I was kind of remembering too, like you say, that there's at least one that was high ground.
Yeah.
Was less than the others.
Yeah, but it was, so we did, have a septic tester guy go out there, and there was no impact to where the buildable area was. So from a, buildable standpoint, there is more than sufficient property close to the road for building, so it's not gonna require additional driveways or any of those things. So, and it is still, the same amount of land as all the rest of them, and it's not always wet. So it's, it's, from a value perspective, I would rate them all relatively the same.
So what would be the typical market value of a lot like that?
In the area,
Five-
yeah, that's what I was kinda curious.
5 acres in that area would probably be 45,000.
So, how big of a reduction do we want to go to
Well, the
make this
goal,
happen?
part of the goal is, for the development of workforce housing. And so one of the challenges is that if you, get a builder that is gonna pay $20,000 or $30,000 for a lot, you're still gonna end up pushing those houses beyond what's quote workforce. So to the extent that we, bring the price down to recoup our costs and then some, the likelihood that the market is going to touch those that most need homes in a more reasonable cost ratio is, you know, so you,
Do we have any protections though to, you know, somebody buys
Yes.
a lot for $7,500 and builds a $500,000 home on it?
No,
no.
no, so,
But is that-
That's not what we want though,
but,
necessarily, you know?
but if we offer them the way we're planning to offer them, an individual could buy the lot and have a contractor,
Yeah.
as long as they build a home at least 960 square feet start within a year and finish within 2 years. Or builders could buy them as spec homes and sell them afterwards, either which way.
Right.
Our primary goal is to keep the price low so that, especially the builders that we've talked to, can provide a product that will be in that reasonable price range. Again, reasonable I use loosely, but if somebody built, our goal is tax capacity. So if
Yeah.
someone built a $500,000 house on there, we'd be in good shape. I don't know.
I just worry about, you know, we're discounting the property value
Yep.
so much as an incentive to build it a less expensive home, and the contractor can still save money, but there's no protection against them building anything, just
There are
taking
several
30 or
market.
35 grand right into their pocket.
Yeah, there are several market things still at work here when because we're required to offer them publicly, right? Anybody that can meet the conditions could buy one and build a house as long as they meet those primary conditions, which we lowered the floor on that. We didn't want to get into being an HOA. We didn't want to do all of those things. Somebody built a $500,000 house there, I would think we'd be in good shape. It'd encourage the next one. But I do think, and just if we set the price at $7,500 or $10,000, and I think that range is reasonable. I was thinking 8 was the number I had in my mind. Doesn't mean that we won't get bids in excess of the minimum, right? But that 7 times 8 is 35. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 8 is 56, which covers the cost that we have into it, covers the development costs we have to this point, and allows us to have some, I mean, that money that would come back, we just have available. I think our first plan of action with the other 40 would be to offer it under these same kind of development conditions, that they would develop at least 12 single-family homes on that 40. We've kind of laid it out to see what would work with planning. And if somebody wanted to buy that 40, we would set a different price for it. And they would be responsible for the platting and working with the planning commission and building of the road and doing all of that.
It will create incentive for a contractor to build a home like that, because they can make some money versus, you know, having to build a more expensive home to get enough margin to
Yep.
justify the time spent doing it. They'll look at this, and if there's $30,000 margin already built in because the property's cheap, oh, well, maybe I can do that.
Right.
Yeah, and
And
Make
no,
it work.
no specials and no back taxes.
Right.
Right.
it'd be nice if, because we're selling them at a reduced price, the idea, of course, is that would get passed on to the home buyer. There's no guarantee, and I don't think there's any way we can make that happen, but that's the idea. And I kinda like that's where we've only got 7 lots on the one side, so we're gonna get some experience and find out how this is working out. Cause then my question is, with the 40 acres, if we sold that to a developer, well, then they probably don't have the same 2-year timeline?
We would still have a timeline for them to take steps and to reach certain milestones relative to the development.
I'm just thinking though, that if it was, say, a dozen lots,
Yeah.
could we expect them to
So
produce
we
a
could
dozen
expect
homes in 2 years?
We could expect that they do the work with the planning commission and plat and record the plat and make those available for sale within a year's period of time, and that we see some development happening within the second year. It's not reasonable to expect it to be built out.
Yeah.
But if they do all the work and plat it and record it as a plat with those conditions,
And the lots are available for sale?
and the lots are available for sale, there is that element of market relative to it. I mean, in our conversations with potential builders, the goal was to build something in that, below county average price, and make them available for that. And I still think that that is a likely outcome. But your interest and request and the statute requires that we make these available for public sale, right? So anybody could. And then we'll have that public hearing, I'm proposing in September. Hopefully, we will have, if we have our August 31st to September 15th, where people can turn in offers, we'll have offers to be able to sell, and then we'll approve the sale of the rest of them with those same conditions, if some of them sell over the counter.
Well, hopefully it'll create that catalyst to build that, because simply right now, they're not building those homes, because there's no money
Yeah.
in it. You know, with the demand for everything else, if the demand was way down, they'd be building homes like that, but the demand is for everything else, for higher priced homes is up, so this might do it.
We sell 3 of those lots, we've recouped our cost in this. And then the ones past that, we're making money that we can use for other projects.
So we'll make them available,
Doesn't?
we'll
You know,
make them,
if it goes up, somebody builds a nicer home on there, so be it, you know, and then we're a little smarter the next time we figure out something a little different maybe.
And I would expect, that
That happens.
a developer in particular, if they're looking at building spec homes, will pick up 2, 3, 4 of them, because then they'll have economies of scale,
Yeah.
where they'll be able to build 2 or 3 homes at once, saving a lot of labor and a lot of those kinds of things. So as we offer them, it would not surprise me if we don't get a bid from a developer in particular, or developers in particular, that would acquire more than one.
I was thinking maybe one would buy all of them with
Well,
a
it's,
decent price
it
like
is a
that.
potential. I mean, if somebody has a model that makes sense, he might, you know, he or she may really, put in an offer for all 7.
I've seen that in a neighboring county where there's all kinds of lots available. I can think of 2 builders particular that bought multiple lots in those developments. They started building a home, put it up for sale before it was even built, and then all of a sudden, hey, they sell that one before it's even built, and then the next one is already in construction by the same company. And there's two to three of those companies doing that, and they're not huge homes by any means. They're nice spec homes, I guess you'd call them. But I guess the cynical side of me is thinking, okay, well, so you sell a lot at a discounted price, whether it's a developer or a private person that purchases a lot, builds a single family home. 5 years down the road, after they get their assessment statements, their value is shot up. Hey, I'm selling. I'm making $100,000 of profit easy on this. I'm out of here, you know. And I would rather promote people staying, you know, not buying it, building it.
But our
dumping
2
it.
primary goals are the creation of housing
Yep.
and the development of tax capacity. If someone builds a house and wants to sell it,
Oh, yeah, I understand
send out
that.
the tax
It's all
capacity.
about free choice,
Could
no
go the
problem.
other way.
Yep. Well, you would hope not, but,
Yep.
yeah.
I expect that we're gonna get offers from contractors who wanna build according to
Yeah. I think so.
what they've told us. If we get, somebody comes in, wants to buy the lot, but the purchase agreement clearly outlines that if they don't meet the conditions, if they don't start that house within a year and finish it within 2 years, we get the property back.
I got a question on that part of it. I didn't notice in the purchase agreement thing about if we did get it back, do we refund what they paid for it, or do we keep the money as damages? Yeah, right now, I don't think it says in there.
That was
Has the county attorney approved this?
Yes.
Okay.
County
I was
attorney has seen
thinking of
this.
that Same thing with the tax
Yeah,
forfeited
should they bring
parcels,
Yeah.
you know, that
Security
you had to
deposit as part of the.
yeah, if we
pay
make-
that money back.
plan,
Yeah.
that
If it's not in there,
they
it
don't
probably
get
ought to
specs
say
if they lose
something
it,
about
that
it.
we keep $1,000 or something. I don't know. We really won't have a lot of input into it once we sell it, I wouldn't think, except having to sell it again.
Yeah, it says in here exactly what their remedies are if there's a default.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the question like with tax forfeited land, or if somebody's home was goes tax forfeit, and then we sell it, we have to give them profit. So I'm assuming it would be similar?
Nope.
Is actual damages the full amount, or what would that be?
This is no longer tax forfeited land.
Yeah, what's the earnest
Yeah,
money?
it's not tax forfeited land, so it's not subject to the same.
And wasn't there something in there too, say if the person is on the second year, you know, isn't quite done and the second year is coming up?
We do have the ability to negotiate with them in good faith.
That's what I remembered, yeah, that they had a way to come for and ask for an extension or whatever, however it was worded.
Yeah.
So if you set the price, are you thinking earnest money would be 10% or something?
Well, if the price is
Doesn't-
low, I would think
yeah,
the
it's right now,
earnest
it's
money
not
would be a
gonna
little
set
higher.
prices.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if
What's
they are,
typical?
if they are half built, you're gonna negotiate with them to finish,
Yeah, that's right.
right? If they haven't started at all, then you're dealing with the purchase price.
That really doesn't address what happens if they,
No, you have to read 559.21, which is really long and complicated and legal, and.
And that says
and
it
if
there.
And if we take their, whatever part we determine as earnest money and refund the balance of it, then we get to resell it for the full price again. So, that's pretty much what that is. If they've started developing and had some reason that they couldn't continue, then we would negotiate in good faith, and if we couldn't, then they would have.
I say with somebody in my situation where I would buy it and build it, and then all of a sudden I pass away, and my heirs inherit it, but they're not gonna continue to build. Would be,
We've
you know,
got,
like you say, we
we've
would.
got
we would do
situations
good-
like that in Northern Hubbard County already.
You know, we would deal in good faith, I would like to think, you know.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't just be ruthless and say, no, you're out of here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I still have the question, what is the earnest money?
Does it say in the purchase agreement?
that's often the negotiable part.
It's yet to be determined.
Have to
Yep,
find
so
that
we can
too.
set it.
Upon the
Yep.
execution of the agreement, payment of the earnest money to be held by the closing company, et cetera. So, I don't know what that typically, what is that typically, $5,000 or $10,000? I mean, here, would we make it 20% of the price?
I think so.
That's a lot of times a negotiable part in the buyer making an offer.
Here, one of the things I'm asking you to consider in this motion is to set the minimum price and the percentage of that price that's earnest money. These conditions in this first paragraph.
I had $10,000 in my mind.
That's what I got too. and
Well, we're not gonna just go
Okay,
10% on
20%.
7,500 for earnest money.
So 10 grand and 20% earnest money?
Yeah, that seems more.
Seems reasonable. And now, it's my understanding, these are minimum bids, so somebody may come in and say.
minimum.
And bid
That's,
a lot
that's
more.
why I would say that the minimum bid is X dollar and the earnest money is 20% of that,
Yeah,
because then you would get 20% of
Yep.
whatever their bid is.
okay.
And it's not the best interest of a property owner if they come in and put up a $500,000 house and the rest of the houses are 225.
No, you
I
don't
mean,
want
they
to,
sure
right.
can, but
Well, you'd
They're
have
not-
the nicest house in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Probably not likely in that particular
Yeah.
area anyhow,
I don't think
you know,
so.
unless it was Lakeshore.
I don't think so.
Probably just gonna be a
I mean, it's a nice area.
nice rambler.
It is a nice area.
Yeah.
It is a very nice area and
Yep.
it's, convenient, located. And there are a lot of businesses in that area that are looking for employees or their existing employees can't find housing.
Yeah.
So I think that, based on everything we've heard, we think that this is probably gonna work well.
I guess like I've said before, we take the information we have and try to make the best decision. And I like where we're going with this. The 10,000 sounds like a good minimum, and 20%, and we're all, obviously, we're all hoping for the best, that it works out, and it's.
so do you want a motion with that
I was
wording?
just gonna ask if we need a
I'll
motion.
make the motion with that wording.
Okay,
10,000 and 20%?
I'll second.
okay.
I'll second that.
Shara, and actually Steve already did. Thank you, David. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Find out in a hurry what kind of demand is here, huh?
Well, we'll hurry up and wait. We'll find out in a few weeks.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have to wait until we get the plat, finalized, and that process is underway, so.
And then house cleaning, I would suggest that we would set the date of September 16th at 11:30 a.m. for the public hearing to be able to approve the sale of those properties.
At what time? 9:30?
11:30. It's during the,
That's right.
it's during the
It'll-
HRA meeting.
It'll be
Yep.
here, yeah.
Yep.
I'll move that too.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you,
Me.
Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So I think then we're down to the garage lease.
So we closed on the property that's located just over here at 500 Second
Second Street.
Northwest. When we purchased it, there was a resident who, moved out, but we have a new tenant that is going to be moving in immediately. Actually, it's the sister of the first tenant, so it worked out really well. But the garage that's located on that property, the county has need for, or is actually using, to store stuff during the construction. I went and looked at storage facilities around the community, because that's really what it's being used for, to see kind of what an average or appropriate going rate is, and came up with 175 per month. That's kind of what they're going for, depending on size. So I'm just proposing a straight lease starting June 1st, where we lease the garage to the county for $175 as long as they need it, so.
So the tenant not interested? That's gonna be renting the house?
We actually didn't even offer it, because the county really needs it. After the county is done with the construction, then we could potentially, have the tenant utilize it, I would imagine. The garage and the house aren't actually very close together.
Uh-huh.
So the house actually was, burnt down, and it was rebuilt, completely new on the existing foundation. That's really close to, and I don't know what that front road is.
Second and front.
Okay, front, there you go, front. And then the garage is actually right on the back property line, right next to the county.
And when we acquired this with the intent of using that garage for the county. That was the conversation with the previous owner. When we purchased it, it was with that intention, and this is just cleaning it up, that the HRA owns it, the county's using it. There should be some agreement relative to that. And this makes sense, that we would
So
have.
the tenant knows that it's not included?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
And it's all, you said it's far enough away where they won't be parking in front of it and we can't get to it and stuff?
No, there's
No.
room for 2 cars to park in between the house and the garage.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it won't be an issue at all, from that perspective.
And I could see the convenience for the county. I mean, we're right here. We don't have to load trucks up or whatever to take something over there or over wherever.
It meets the needs, because when we build back the garage space, the new garage space is not gonna provide any space for maintenance. So this is for maintenance storage. They had 2 bays in the old garage that came down. Now they got 2 bays 30 feet away. And my hope is that if we get the grant and can build a transit garage, we're gonna build a bay for maintenance over there and be done with it. So that's the longer term plan.
Okay.
We applied for that grant last year and didn't get it. We'll be applying every year until we do, so.
Okay, thank you. So actions on this then, need an approval?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Steve. And I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Director's report.
I just have a couple things to mention. I have reached out to Miller McDonald about scheduling the audit for 2024. I believe that this is their third year in their original commitment. As we know, 2023 audit didn't go so great, so I'm hoping that they're still going to be willing to do the 24 audit. I'm still waiting to hear that, but assuming that that's the case, then we'll schedule that and get underway as quickly as possible. The Regency is going to the Small Cities program. They were awarded resources to do some rehabilitation work. So we're started working on that. The inspector will go over with Angie and look at all of the things that need rehabilitation or some updating, and then to the extent that we can spend the resources available, we will do that. If there's some available left over, then we'll take a look at Cornerstone and see if there's some other things that we could use those resources for to do some updating with Cornerstone as well. As I mentioned, we will have a new renter at the building or the house that we just got. And then this afternoon, I will be going to Akeley. They have finally narrowed down the plan for their restroom that will be located at the park. And I'm gonna help them prepare a bid document so that they can get bids. Once that process is done, they'll sort of figure out exactly what they have available to them and what they may need. They likely will come to a request to either the EDA or the county for some assistance in meeting the gap in what's available, what they have available and what it's gonna cost. I helped them do a grant to Blandon Foundation, so they got $100,000 from Blandon for this restroom. And then, they have local resources of about 40,000 or so.
So would the parks have any further money? Because this technically would still fall under that, wouldn't it? I know didn't we give them some before?
We did, and that,
They didn't wanna give any more.
Okay, that was my
Yeah.
there's,
question.
Okay.
the first match went to that local road improvement program that created the parking area and the paving, and the paved portion that got done a couple of years ago. And we would have the option to consider either through parks funds or through EDA funds to help with that, and hopefully they scaled and scoped this project to the point where, you know, they can reach 85–90% of what they need, with the money that they have available. It's been a long time coming, but that parking area and that little tourism spot is really important to Hubbard County, and having a functional 12-month rest area or restroom will be really,
It gets
really
used
good.
a lot.
It
I'm
does
really
get used a lot.
surprised every time I go through town. I make a point to look to see if someone's there, and there are cars there.
There are-
People using Heartland Trail. Maybe the DNR has some money they could kick in for a
Yeah.
restroom facility to facilitate it, you know, but
We've kind of committed to making sure that we help them close the gap on what they do, but, you know, if they come
Less-
back with a
yeah.
$500,000 project and $140,000 worth of revenue, that's not gonna work, so.
last I heard they were at 180 the last time I had heard, but that had been a while, so I don't know if it's still there or not.
Yeah, it's right around there. They have been working over the last few months to really, design the restroom in such a way that they're being as economical as possible and still really meeting the needs of both the community and the tourists that come there. So, I'll find out the details when I meet with, Christie this afternoon.
What time is that?
3:00.
Okay, all right.
It seems like a goodly amount of money when you think about we're trying to build homes to sell for 250, and then you got $180,000 for bathrooms.
But, you know, my hubby's looking at tiny homes and it was $367 a square foot because actually it would have been much cheaper to build larger.
I'm trying to squeeze in.
The kitchen and the bathroom was the most expensive part of the home. And so, once you do that, the excremental, or the incremental, size increases are not much. So
Right.
you get a small home and you got the very most expensive things in there, and then it becomes very expensive per square foot because you've got the most expensive things in this little space. So the same sort of holds true with a bathroom, and especially it's a public use bathroom, so it really needs to have a lot more beefiness for the public being able to use the bathroom.
And all the
so-
regulations that come.
Yeah, and ADA and all the
compliant
things,
and
and so
everything.
you would hope that, you know,
expensive.
it's just a bathroom, but actually
Four times
it's,
more expensive than your home bathroom.
it's very expensive, so.
I could get by with a satellite, but, but that's me.
Not year round, so, anyway, it is actually a very, strong economic benefit to the entire county and, to Akeley too, and this is a project that they've worked for a very long time.
Yeah, they have
So,
been.
it will be nice if we can figure out a way to make it work for them. So-
Yeah, I remember sitting on a couple of meetings with Jed
Mm-hmm.
years ago on this, so.
Yeah,
And they, you know, at that point, they kept scaling the bathroom down and down and down so they could get to where they could afford it. And, but yeah, it's a,
But they were still wanting it to basically be a community center
yeah,
with a bathroom, and now that
It's just a bathroom.
had to give that up, yep.
yeah, and it's just a bathroom, so.
alrighty.
Anyway, so I'll have more information after I meet with her, and then they go through the process of bidding, which I expect is gonna be about a month, and then we'll get firm numbers and then be able to figure out where they're at and what else we can do to try and figure that out, so.
Good.
Lastly, that we, HLDC is working on getting bids for a website. Our website is in significant need. As part of that, I anticipate that we'll be doing some things for the HRA EDA website. Right now, we have nothing really in the EDA section at all, and then only minimal information in the HRA section. So, we'll have a little bit of thought about, you know, how do we, push people back and forth between the two and what makes sense to be where. And so we'll probably have a little bit of conversation at our next meeting about what makes sense to be on the HRA, EDA websites, and then what makes sense to be on the HLDC website. So, that's all I have.
Alright, thank you. Is there anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
You did?
A second.
Steve? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Are you going over the?
I did.